Welcome to the Council of Kings and Queens powered by Reality Check Empowerment Zone. Now let's welcome our host, Dr. V.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nikki Riggins. I am not Dr. V. Dr. V will not be with us tonight. She is recuperating. She is not feeling well, and she is still recuperating from COVID. So hearts, prayers is all with Dr. V tonight, because this is normally her thing where she introduces everything and gets everybody excited about the conversation. So my name is Nikki Riggins. I am the CEO of Reality Check Empowerment Zone, and this is the Council of Kings and Queens. I welcome everyone to our broadcast tonight. Tonight we have, actually, you know what? I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. So we are going to start with the ladies. Well, so I'm going to let you go and introduce yourself, and then we'll introduce the gentlemen.
Okay, well, I'm Safita Artist Mills. I am based out of Virginia, originally from Brooklyn, New York, and really excited to be here and engage in the conversation.
Thank you, and I will go to you, sir. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you so much. Hey, guys, it's Robert Malloy. I represent Keeping Veterans Fit, based here out of Atlanta, originally from Providence, Rhode Island, by way of Jacksonville, Florida. So I look forward to today's dialogue, discussion, and contributing to the conversation. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Well, welcome everybody. So today's conversation, typically we would do an activity, and we would paint, or we would draw, or we would do something of the sort. But our conversation today is a little bit more, it isn't something that I could think of something that we could paint or draw. The topic for our conversation tonight is being the change that we want to see. So we all know we had a historic election that is still in the midst of going through everything right now, and everybody is it's still up and down. We know that Biden is saying that he won. The current sitting president is saying that he didn't. Yeah, I can't give him that kind of. The current president is saying that he didn't, and he's fighting it. And so no matter what, who, how, those of us that look like us, there's still a whole lot of work to do. And and the conversation today, I have been talking to different friends and different people, and seeing different things that were going on, and there were people that were supposed to go on tonight, but due to health and travel and a whole bunch of other stuff, I think who was supposed to be here for this particular conversation is here for this conversation. And so the conversation tonight is, what are we doing to be the change that we want to see? Whether it be the change in music, whether it be the change in our particular industries, whether it be the change in family. A lot of times we say, oh, well, they should have done this, or they should have done this. And my question now is, well, what did you do? Did you do anything, or are you just talking? Because if you're just talking, cool, that's fine. But I really don't have time for those conversations. I have time for conversations that are going to promote change. So we are going to, there's something that some people that were going to try to be on tonight, but they can't because they actually had another engagement. And so I am going to play something from them. And it was very insightful for me to see them do this, because one of the biggest things that I've said, and I've worked in the music industry for a very long time, and around it and everything. And, what is the industry going to do? What are they doing to be the change that they want to see? What is it? And some friends of mine shut my mouth, because I couldn't really say anything else about them, because they did something. So I'm going to play what they did. One moment.
These are tough times we live in, but still we can't just give in. We must stand tall and live strong. It's up to the youth to live on.
And carry this torch we pass down. You see, I know it's not the last round. In the next generation, my faith is unwavering.
My confidence in you is unshakable, because I know that you're willing and far beyond capable of doing all that must be done. But to do it all, we must be as one.
Life can be better than most of us dream. So once you take the reins, believe in your greatness which lies within.
And for the better, this world will change.
I see that you want it. I see that you're working for it.
So don't take no days off.
It's gonna pay off. I see that you love it. I want you to know that
Before you can see it, you gotta believe it.
You're the generation of tomorrow.
The pursuit starts today, and all time is borrowed. So you have found a way.
You are not, oh I repeat,
you are not put on the search and lose. And you are hot, yeah I repeat it, but you are hot, so do what you do.
And we gon' do it big. We gon' make a scene. We gon' take the doubters, make them all believe. We gon' be the change that we wanna see. We're not taking average, chasing legend status. We can have the world, we can have it all. Nothing is too big, nothing is too small. We can be the change that we wanna see. We're not taking average, chasing legend status.
Oh, no. I see that it's in your heart. I see that it's in your heart. I feel your desire.
It only takes one spark. It only takes one spark to set it on fire.
You're the generation of tomorrow.
But the work starts today.
And all time is borrowed, so there's no time to wait.
You and I, yeah, I repeat, you and I, put on this earth to lose. And you are hot, yeah, I repeat it, you are hot, so do what you do. Yeah, and we gon' do it big. We gon' make a scene. We gon' take the dollars, make them all believe. We gon' be the change that we wanna see. We're not taking average, chasing legend status. We can have the world, we can have it all. Nothing is too big, nothing is too small. We can be the change that we wanna see. We're not taking average, chasing legend status.
Let's go.
You can have anything you want, but know the work must still be done. Hey, the power to change the world is in your hands. What is a dream without action? Nothing but a reason to stay asleep. You gotta wait, make a decision. Life is for the living, and it's yours, but you gotta go.
We gon' do it big. We gon' make a scene. We gon' take the dollars, make them all believe. We gon' be the change that we wanna see. We're not taking average, chasing legend status. We can have the world, we can have it all. Nothing is too big, nothing is too small. We can be the change that we wanna see. We're not taking average, chasing legend status.
We gon' do it big, yeah. Oh, nothing. Do it. All we gotta do is do it. Nothing can stop us now. No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That was
Powerful.
beautiful. Yes, very.
that one took everything in me, and a second everything in me not to cry, because it was the men. And it's the men speaking about being the changes that we want to see. And we all know that the social injustice is ridiculous right now, whether it be just the dealings with police officers or police brutality, with dealing with um, the challenges with housing, challenges with inequality in employment. I mean, it's no secret. It's been going on for where are we now 402 years, 403 years. It's been going on, um, and seeing it from a woman's perspective, seeing the men, you know, saying it and being the voice of the change. Like, we have to be the change. We cannot be average. We have to chase legend status because we are legendary. We are legendary. Our melanated skin, we are legendary. And so the people that I invited today are people that I know are actively becoming and engaging in the changes that they want to see. So I'm gonna change what we do normally and let Mr. Malloy take the lead here, and start the conversation, of the changes that we need to see, need to happen, and what are you doing, and what are you actively doing to make those changes happen?
Absolutely, and that's those are important questions. Not only what are you doing, but what are you actively doing? What is your messaging as well? So, first, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to, partake in this dialogue, because it's so important. And just having and utilizing your platform is one part. It's the first part, and as it was displayed tonight. The artists. I mean, we saw a lot of familiar faces, and we saw some new faces in the music entertainment industry, and it was good to see that. It was good to see what's going on, because right now we're in a time of a lot of promotion of competition when it should be more promotion of collaboration. And so that really just set a great tone within itself of the messaging that I think is so important, and that transcends even throughout, what's going on socially, internationally, nationally, economically, politically, emotionally, financially, just the entire fabric of what's going on everywhere. And so, so that was definitely on time, and it was on point. But we have to take this thing very personal, because everything starts at home. And with what's going on right now, I think that a lot of messaging early on in the year, even during the pandemic, start off a little bit before that, with the social injustice with law enforcement and even in the judicial system. It set a tone of kind of stay in your place, or stay at home, or keep your voice down, or, your voice isn't being heard. And I mean, unfortunately, especially people of color, that's what we've dealt with for a long time. But specifically, this last year, maybe some change, but just talking about during the pandemic right now, because that's what's going on. It's important to continue to raise your voice to make sure that it's heard. There's no time, there's no too delicate, no taboo subject matter that we shouldn't be able to talk about right now, because obviously what's in the dark is coming into light, and we have to be very intentional in what we're doing and what we're using our voice for. So I would say that it starts at home, and it spreads abroad. And it's a trying time, but at the same time, it's such a great opportunity to be able to unite. It's also, like I said, it's a time to collaborate, with maybe people or things or organizations and stuff that you haven't thought about, or was a little resistant before. Now we know that unity is definitely strength, and we have to build from that. And that not only people of color, but different cultures. Obviously, America that we live in is very diverse, and we went through a time of this last presidency where that was broken up. Just having the types of conversation about lack of respect, about being supportive to different people, different organizations. I mean, it's been a lot of garbage. We're just keeping it 100. And now is the time not only to raise our voices, but to be active, meaning use your resources. You have to use your resources. And time is resource right now, so we have to use our time wisely. We have to continue to build our belief system. We have to continue to unite family, friends, our community, and build from that. So I just encourage everyone to, number one, don't lose hope. Even everything that's going on around you, you have to understand that there's certain messaging for certain time frames and for certain communities. But what your reality is, and your reality is this is a big opportunity for us to excel over everything that's going on, and that's from every aspect, from political, financial, spiritual, economical, and everything that's going on. So now is the time for that.
All righty. Safeda, I have a question for you, because we're moms, and we're moms of, we have both boys and girls. Mm-hmm. So my question for you, and for you to start off on the conversation, is what is it that we're teaching at home? Yes, Robert, we know you're a father also, but as moms of, I know, and I was very transparent in another broadcast, I was afraid to teach my son how to drive because he's a Black boy. And I just can't do it, because I see it as setting him up. I see it as setting him up. If I don't put him out there, he can't interact with the police. If he can't interact with the police, then he has a better shot of coming home.
Right.
And, a lot of people, oh, that's crazy. Look, whatever, I'm a mama. And that is I watch other moms on TV, and they're talking about, their son, and it's just something that it grips me. And, I've told my son he can ask anybody who wants to teach him how to drive. That is just something that I cannot do, because I can't do it. And so for you as a mother, and we have similar challenges with our children. So how do you navigate that? How do you teach them to become the change that you want to see, and that that they can become, while living in our reality, our current reality?
Right. Well, for one thing that I'm very adamant about with my children is making sure that they have a voice. Growing up, I was always taught, and just, a lot of people are familiar with being told that children are meant to be seen and not heard. And I feel like in a lot of ways, it's more harmful than helpful to teach children from young that they don't have a voice, or they shouldn't speak up, or even express how they feel about certain things. I always teach them to be respectful when something is bothering them, or they want to express themselves, or even if they feel that something isn't fair. That as a mom, you're like, okay, I want to know, why do you feel that way? And I'm going to explain to you why I decided to do that, or why I took that from you, or why, I told you something and you didn't listen, and there were consequences behind that. So having those conversations and making them feel comfortable with coming to me or coming to my husband, and knowing that we're not just going to completely shut them out or shut down what they're saying. We're allowing them to speak and express themselves, but guiding the way that conversation happens, by teaching them how to effectively communicate, and teaching them that they don't have to react or speak out of just pure emotion, but being more of a person that responds and not reacts. to things, because when you respond to something, you take the time to actually think about it before you speak or before you express yourself. But when you just react to something, you're not thinking rationally, and you're not really, using the best judgment, because you're just reacting off of raw emotion. So kind of helping them guiding them in that way and showing them how to do that by starting with the conversations that they have with us and being comfortable to do that. Because I know just from my own experience that there were things that I've even witnessed other people go through, and it made it harder for them to deal with issues and things, because whatever trauma they experienced in their childhood, it grew up with them, and it became an issue when they became adults. So having those conversations, even the hard conversations, like you said, we have older boys. I have a 20-year-old, and Lord knows when he turned 20, I was even more scared, for him, because you're just like, oh my gosh, he's driving, he's doing, these things. And it's just knowing that you're equipping them from young and teaching them how to, obey authority, teaching them that, you just don't listen to an adult or authority figure just for the sake of them being an adult, knowing that when something is wrong, you have the right to say no. I don't have to, listen to that as a child and go to an adult and say, hey, I don't feel that what this person is telling me is right. But the only way children will know these things is if you have those conversations and you give them those tools, so that as they grow, they'll begin to understand why you would do certain things, or why you had to, take certain things away from them, or certain consequences behind some of their actions.
Yeah, thank you. Rob, I'm going to give you the same question, because I know you have half and half. You have adult children and you have teenagers.
Yeah, I do. The thing about it is, as a parent, I mean, I've been a parent for a long time, right? And regardless of my adult children or my teenagers, I have to have the faith that what I instill with them inside of them is going to be, something that they will always keep in mind. You can't, as much as we want to, we can't control all the actions and activities of our children. And so at some point we do have to, just trust in the system and the process that we have done, and that we've committed to, as parents. And I believe one of the largest learning process for children is watching their surroundings, right? So they're looking at how we handle situations. They're looking at what upsets us, what gives us the most concern, what we find joy in, and they pay attention to that. And regardless of the age of our parents, you're always surprised at some point. Well, what your child has learned that week or learned that day, or sometimes they use against you because that's something that they've seen firsthand. And you're like, okay, you're paying attention, or you watched me, And so that's one thing that we really have to be able to take pride in and continue to be very adamant about is, our messaging as we are examples as parents. But I do have one son. He's an adult son, and he has a son, right? And so it's kind of one of those things to where it's a beautiful thing, and I trust him, and I trust our relationship, that if he has questions, he'll ask me. But as long as we continue to keep the communication, he knows that there's no conversation, there's no topic or subject matter that's off limits. We can talk about it all, no matter how it may make or appear to be uncomfortable. Who else is going to have that conversation with, and even if it's about law enforcement, even if it's about career, even if it's about family matters, relationships, who else should your children be able to confide in and lean on, just even if it's a listening ear? So we have to continue to build those relationships throughout our lives, when it comes to our children, So I think that's very key. Again, even with my youngest daughter is in the process of learning how to drive. She has her her learner's permit, and her mom and I were helping her out with lessons, and then we're teaching her some things on the weekend. And as scary as it is, we want her to be as equipped as possible for any type of situation. I think that the toughest thing we can do right now is shelter or shield our children, because we want to make sure, again, that they're equipped with all the resources, all the tools that they need. So independency is important. That's a tool. That's something that we strive to as parents, for our children to be able to have. We want them to have independency. And then as parents, we want to be that liaison, and we want to be that resource and that support system, because the generation and the cycle continues. So it's going to be something that whatever we instill with them, there's going to be a lot of bits and pieces, prayerfully more whole pieces than anything that they instill with their children, and so leading by example and making sure that we continue to, find a way to get through these trying times and these challenging times, and, and fight through it, because kids are they're looking at how resilient we are as adults, how resilient, we are going through so much prior to where we're at now. And what are we building off of what our parents and our ancestors have done? Are we building off of that, or are we reverting back to old tactics that have been ineffective? Because we have to continue to evolve, and we have to continue to build off of our previous experiences so that we can continue to progress. And I feel like that's where we are as a total, even parents, but as people. That's where we are right now.
So I'm glad you said that about being able to be independent. A big thing for me is I never want my children to have to work for anybody.
Yeah.
So that is something that is a little different. Something, my father is pro entrepreneur, my mom not so much. But growing up, I was able to identify that if I don't have to depend on you to provide a living wage for me, I can create a living wage for me. It gives a different type of independence, and it gives a different type of freedom. So that's something that, as we talk about becoming the change that we want to see, that is definitely something that is huge for me in my household. If my children choose to work for somebody else, that's their choice, but I don't want it to be their only option. No. And I know all three of us are entrepreneurs in our own right. But it is something that, and we've all worked for somebody. But it's something that I'm very passionate about. Is working with special needs children, and creating options, because I want to see a change. So I can't just say, well, why isn't this happening, if I'm not willing to get out there and make it happen. Somebody was joking with me. They said, "Oh, blessed are the peacemakers." I said, "Well, I ain't her. I'm nobody's peacemaker. That you don't call me for that. I'm not the person you call if you want a peacemaker. I'm the person you call when you want to shake things up, and you want to try to get some things done." We might call Mr. Malloy for peacemaker. I can't even say we're gonna call Safeda, because Safeda, we right there. Yeah, we might talk each other off the ledge, but it's not. Yes. It's not to stop anything from happening. It's like keep going. Right. Just don't jump off the ledge.
Keep fighting. Yes.
Stay on the ledge. Keep fighting a little bit. But so there are things that we all, I know that I'm working on, I know Mr. Malloy is working on, I know Safeda's working on, that are, because I don't believe there's a one size fits all answer. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about the church, and they were saying, well, where was the church in all of this? And I said, well, I mean, to be straight up, I don't see that the church wasn't there. It's just there is no more Martin Luther King that can unite the entire country. That person doesn't exist yet. Now, because we all have to decide what we have to be united in something. So in figuring that out, I wouldn't say necessarily that and I'll, take your opinions. I wouldn't say the church wasn't there. I just say we're in a different era now. The era of the church leading the charge in social injustice worked in the 50s and early 50s, middle 50s. It worked then because the majority of African Americans were in the church. So you could reach, there was a captive audience. You could reach them. If you go to the church, you reach most of the Black people. Well, now that's not necessarily the case. So it's a matter of, but that doesn't say that there isn't a place for the church and there isn't a spot for the church to work within in fighting social injustice and bringing changes that are community wide. It's just not going to look like it did in the 50s. That's just my opinion. Now, that's my personal opinion. That is not necessarily the opinion of my church. That is not necessarily the opinion of the churches that I work with. That is Nikki's opinion. So let me be very clear, because if you go run and tell them, they're going to tell you, well, that was Nikki. This is Nikki's platform. This is Reality Check, powered by Reality Check Empowerment. Said before, I am the CEO. So this is my personal opinion. But to my guest, what would be your statement on that? So Fada, what would you say?
Well, I agree. I feel that things definitely have changed, and not every church is created equal. They're not all the same. Not all of them are going to do the same thing in what they do and how they participate in fighting against social injustices and bringing the community together. But I can say that for the most part, they're all community minded, and they're trying to find ways to bring everybody together, because of course there's going to be some people that they're not going to go without kicking and screaming, because everybody has their own way of doing things and how they see it should be done. Some people are more militant than others. Some people are more so, I don't want to talk. I just want to, I just want action. I just want to go and do something. So there has to be that person that's in the center of it, that's kind of bridging that gap in where the disconnection is. And I feel like the church can definitely be a major resource in doing that. But there's also individuals that's going to more so go outside of the church. Because I believe, honestly, that us being the body, we are the church, which we all know that. But us being the body has different parts, and different parts of the body has a different function. And so one person can go and do something else while another part is doing something else. And essentially, they're all working towards the same goal. Just like our body, each system works separately and together to be able to continue to maintain every function so that we can live and breathe and, have our being. So the same way the church is doing the same thing. And instead of people saying, well, what is the church doing? Well, what are you doing to bring those ideas and resources to the church? There are things that you're privy to that the church may not be privy to, that you can bring to them and say, hey, I think this is something you should look into. I think this is something we can do together. So people can't just look at the church alone and say, well, what are they doing? Well, what are you bringing to them that they could be doing and that they could be participating in that you haven't introduced them to? So it goes both ways, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Rob, what do you say?
Yeah, really all I can do is echo and piggyback off of both of what you ladies have mentioned. Being a man that is into business, corporations, and things like that, I look at it from some legality standpoints as well. Things have to be done a certain way. Each church most churches are 501c3s, right? So that means it's a formation of an organization. So there's bylaws, there's codes of conduct and standard procedures and things like that. So just because you have a subject matter that you want to address, or you feel like the organization should do things now and do them this way, there's ways and procedures of things to be done, and you have to also look past the individuals of the church. You can't take it personal, right? You have to look at it as an organization and what is best for that organization. Obviously they're there to serve the community, so you don't know what things or programs they have in place or that they're attached to that may be a conflict. And I don't mean that don't stand up for social injustice or anything of that kind, but what I'm saying is there's a certain way to do things, and those ways aren't always going to be visual to us, and we may not be privy to those things. So you have to keep those things in mind, and it's always going to go back to what goes on in the household, and how effective you can be in your own community. Nikki, you mentioned about not having that presence or same leadership as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We're in a time now to where we have multiple leaders, and we have the freedom to do things now that he actually fought for, and our ancestors and those before us fought for. So we have the ability now to have businesses and be able to participate in capitalism and in commerce and e-commerce, which these things are very powerful right now, especially in our country, to be able to have buying power, to be able to have own stock and have assets and corporations. And I think we have to start thinking a little bit differently, when it comes to how we can be effective in our community, even from the political, economical standpoint. Again, we can do things a lot differently that we weren't able to do 10, 15, 20, 50 years ago, and use that. We don't have to do the same methods. We don't have to utilize the same methods. I mean, some are effective, but it just kind of depends on what direction you want to go, because having a social presence or having a social movement may not be the equivalent of having an economical shift that's effective against businesses or whatever's going on. And so we have the ability now, and we have to be a little bit more cerebral about it now, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
and be strategic now.
Yes.
And sometimes the most effective way is not to let your opponent or the enemy see what's coming. And
yes.
I think that's where we are, and that's where we can be and continue to grow from.
Yeah. I would say something that my grandfather taught me a long time ago was where the money, unless it costs you something, is not really that important to you. And to never trust anybody that doesn't put their money up. And so I look at when as an adult, I went back and I looked at some of the civil rights movements, and things didn't change because they were morally wrong.
Right.
They changed because it was a financial disadvantage. The Montgomery bus boycott was not successful because it was morally wrong.
It hit the pockets.
It hit the pockets.
Yeah.
And so as businesses were about to go bankrupt, the bus companies were about to go bankrupt. So if the bus companies go bankrupt, follow me here. If the bus companies go bankrupt, they can't pay the employees. That means that neither the bus company nor those employees can afford to pay taxes.
There you go.
If they can't pay taxes, then the state and local governments, as well as the federal governments, are impacted because all of them benefit from taxes. There are local taxes, state taxes, and federal taxes that individuals as well as businesses pay. So when you start playing with those types of things, then Yeah, I think that was probably a bad idea because there was a financial risk,
Yes.
and it cost those who wanted to have something a certain way. So unless you start playing with the pockets, I don't oppose protesting in any way, shape, form, or fashion. There's some people that know they really don't want to you really don't want to hear my mouth. So you really don't want to go up against me. But the other part about me that a lot of people don't know is that I also will go after the pocket.
Yeah.
Because I know it's not going to, I can
Absolutely.
scream, holler, and do anything that I want to do, but you're really not going to pay me any attention until it costs you some money.
That's right.
And once you know
Yes.
that it will cost you some money, then it's like, hey, let me hear her out. Let me hear what she has to say.
Yeah.
And there's somebody else that has launched, they started a bank, a Black-owned bank called Greenwood. And they are changing the game in the banking industry. It's taglines, and it says, you earned it, you keep it. No, there are no ridiculous overdraft fees. It's a whole lot of things, and it's a Black-owned bank, and was started by Ryan Glover and Killer Mike and some others. And because I think they also everybody realizes that you have to have a voice for protest. You got to have some action, and you got to have some finances behind it.
Yeah.
And so I look at social injustice, and I look at, even with COVID, somebody was talking to another friend of mine, and they were like, oh, COVID is social injustice. Yeah, it is. It could have been handled a lot differently. But you got to also follow the money.
Right.
Is it financially advantageous? And people have been screaming this, yelling this, saying this. It is not financially advantageous for some people to. So some people are like, it's COVID's not that bad. I personally am not of that belief. I lost too many people to COVID.
Yeah.
There are too many people that I've known personally, that are in my family, that did not win. Well, no, I shouldn't say they didn't win. They won because they're in heaven now, not having to battle, but they're not here with us.
Yeah.
And so that's not a cost that I would want to pay or want any other family to pay.
Right.
But so I had to start focusing on the things that I knew would make an impact, and I knew would make a change. And I know my grandfather also taught me that if you don't know your history, you are doomed to repeat it.
Yes.
And so I know history isn't a big deal to people. So I partnered with another organization, and that person is actually with us tonight, to help design a game that would allow you to learn your history, that we are the first. And as we saw our vice president-elect say, I might be the first, but I definitely will not be the last. We got to know that there were people that came before us that did some things that they were the first to do.
Yeah.
That are still here with us. This isn't way back when. We have in Georgia, she is still very much with us, the very first African-American president of the Georgia State Bar. And she's very much still with us. This didn't happen years ago. It happened in 2014, I believe. 2016, maybe. No, 2014. She was elected, the first to be elected to anything in the Georgia State Bar. And then she became the uncontested president of the Georgia State Bar. But there's so many more. There are so many more. And it's so many more that we have. And that game actually is I will let the person who that was partnered, that I helped design the game, I'll let him talk about the game, because it's definitely a part of the change that we want to see. So Rob, I'll let you talk about it.
Okay, and I'll be as brief as possible, but we're super excited. The concept of the game was really it hit home because when I think about my history, even going back to grade school and things like that, what were the subjects in school, grade school, high school? What were some of the main things that were pushed? Of course, you got math. Don't really want to deal with that. Science, world history, these type of things. But when you dig in, you start thinking about history for a child of color. If you was to ask them to name off, 5 to 10 historical moments in the world, how many of those things would they mention of a black inventor or a person of color to become an attorney, astronaut, things like that? Because a lot of that wasn't taught in school unless it was Black History Month, just that month. And if I think that's the shortest month of the year anyway. So if you missed any days of school, then that's a couple of days off that you don't have access to learning about the history. And more important than that, what resources as parents and our parents and our great grandparents, and you go further back to where folks weren't allowed to have books anyway. How much of those things were taught consistently, and as far as I'm concerned, not a whole lot. With me, with those around me, and not enough, I should say. I wouldn't say not a whole lot because everybody was taught differently at home or reared differently. But as far as having a resource and a strong resource in liaison of, hey, these are some historical events that happened with people of color, there wasn't a whole lot out there. And so even in 2020, even in 2029, there's not a whole lot of resources that you have right there at your fingertips. And so we've created a game, Who's the First, which basically talks about, people of color and a lot of the accomplishments that were major and will surprise you. Because you can go locally, like Nikki mentioned, of some historical moments right here in Georgia, right here in Atlanta. And you can date back to, the Olympic times or, the first Black male astronaut, female in NASA that worked in NASA, and just little things like that happened. It had to have happened, right? It had to have happened. And so just kind of having access to that knowledge is something that we decided was very, very important and timely because it's a time to be proud. A lot of times, even with the movies, there's so many subliminal things that goes on in this country that tries to put people of color back in their place, right? As if slavery is an accomplishment or the only roots that we have, and that's not true. And so this crushes that. It shows that there are thousands upon thousands of things that has happened and maybe have never been acknowledged until this game. I truly believe that there'll be some things, or there are some things that you had absolutely no clue happened with people of color or was accomplished by people of color. That goes from the music industry to sports. Those are some of the fun ones, but you can also dig into inventions. You can also dig into political policies, political positions, and things like that. And it was so key, so important. And it was going to happen anyway. So we're glad that we was on the forefront of the development. And actually, the game is available right now. It's available right now.
Yeah. So we'll post the link to Our Games Matter because that's where the game is now. And Safeda, I know you are working on some things that you didn't know you were going to have to work on. Yes. So that is definitely becoming the change that you want to see, and providing some outlets and some resources.
Yes. So I just recently started a podcast, and primarily why I started the podcast is to find a way to connect with people and encourage and uplift them, especially women. With everything that's going on, a lot of people don't consider the mental, people's mental health during this pandemic, and how it's affecting a lot of people mentally, and how you're constantly getting, from the media, everything centered around it, all of the negative things, all of the things that are happening in our world that we're aware of, but we're being bombarded with it so much that it can definitely cause a mental breakdown for some people, causing, people depression, people having more anxiety because of having COVID, or having family members or people close to them who have had COVID. And so just speaking on, faith, and regardless of what we see and what we witness, and sharing why I've, just even in my own personal life, holding on to faith and understanding where, God is in all of these things, and how people may even question that, and just kind of changing that narrative. Because one thing I'm very passionate about is changing the narrative in things, as far as what's put out there, what people see, what people listen to, the content that's being created, and making sure that it's something that gives life. Because my grandmother, growing up in church, my grandmother was very, very adamant about telling us, be careful of what you say, be careful of what you, speak, and the things that you create just from what comes out of your mouth. And she says, so in everything that you do, and in everything that you say, and every action that you take, make sure that it's giving life. So that was one of the things that I started to do, to just kind of give life, because there's a lot of things that affect people differently during this pandemic. Nikki's familiar with my situation, where I have a child who is compromised, because she has to take immunosuppressant medications, because she had a heart transplant at 5 months old. So for moms like me, there aren't a whole lot of resources that kind of help you navigate through something like this. You have a child that you definitely don't want to be exposed to something like COVID. And then you've got the things changing with school. Then you have things changing with even it being dangerous just to take them to the hospital. So you may have to sit out a few months before you can even take them for a checkup that they definitely need, because they need to know what's going on. So just kind of helping people find an outlet, and giving people resources in the same breath in doing so. So aside from, starting the podcast, just even providing resources for people that they may not be aware of, because I feel like a lot of the time when it comes to us, it's like, if you don't ask, you won't know. Yeah. And just in the medical field, just being aware of the health disparities, in this country, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to the treatment that we receive, all of those things. I went through all of it. I was able to see a lot of things. So I started to align myself with some of these organizations and finding out what's available, and was surprised to know the resources that are there that don't even get used, because they don't tell anybody about it. So having to, go through that just brought me to the point of saying, okay, I found the disconnect. So now I have to bridge the gap. And that's one of the things that I've been pushing to do, and that I've even talked to Nikki about in some of the things that I've involved with. In one industry specifically, with everybody, kind of having their own opinions about the legalization of cannabis. I've been working in that industry for the past few years in finding ways to create more opportunities for us that are interested in that industry, and just seeing that it's being controlled by one core group, and that group is not us. And because of how it's affected us and affected our communities, and even just studying to become a specialist in endocannabinoid medicine and treatment, I realized just how many things that people aren't aware of as far as the medicinal benefit of it, as well as other things that coincide with it, that is very, very good for our health, that's natural, and doesn't where we're not having to be exposed to so many prescription medication that has effects in and of itself. So just being aware and going through all of those things has made me push harder to find out which states are, having challenges when it comes to the percentage of minorities that are given licenses for, as a grower, a license to open a dispensary and different things like that. And if people knew the statistics and the percentages of us that get those opportunities, they wouldn't necessarily be like surprised, but it's very alarming. So I fight very hard to figure out what's going on in each state and working with people who are actually pushing for those opportunities to come open for minorities.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, you are wearing the Keeping Veterans Fit shirt today, and I know keeping veterans, fighting for veterans, is something that you're very passionate about. And I know that Keeping Veterans Fit has some things that because there is not enough assistance for veterans, female veterans, veterans of color, it just isn't. And so can you speak to what some of the things that your organization is doing to become that change, to create some opportunities?
Yeah, sure. Keeping Veterans Fit, first and foremost, is an organization. We're based out of Atlanta. We do have a chapter in Alabama, as well as Jacksonville. So, what's most important right now is just awareness of that there are needs out there. And right now, what we're really focused on is opportunities for veterans. If I go through statistics and things like that, we would be on here another 20 to 30 minutes, and it would not necessarily be something that we want to hear, just because of the numbers are tough when we talk about veterans that aren't getting proper health care. Even disabled veterans, start talking about the homelessness in the cities and outside of the inner cities with veterans, those percentages, and just veterans and their families included. It's tough, and it's been tough for a while. And resources are steadily being taken away federally. Let's just be real about that, and even from a state level. The resources aren't there. Those resources that were there, a lot of those that were supposed to be allocated for certain things, it didn't happen. It didn't happen, or consistently run out of funding. That's the story that we've been hearing for literally years. So our organization has, we thought about what are some of the things that we can do that may be a little bit different. There's all kinds of organizations that are doing things for veterans and with veterans. So I don't want to discredit or discount that. There are some great organizations that are helping veterans and veteran families. So we feel like we're doing our part by being a little bit more creative nowadays. And so one of the programs that we are launching is called CEOware. And it's actually a program that talks about sustainable fashion. For those of you that don't know, sustainable fashion is basically, we're talking about things that are good for our environment, right? So sustainable, for our environment, that doesn't cause harm against our environment and as individuals, So that's something that's very near and dear. And I won't get into as much because there's information that you can look at directly, but it is a program that we're launching that allows veterans to get into that business of fashion and learning about sustainable fashion, and just learning a little bit more about our environment, our economy, and our ecosystem, if you will. So it kind of merges some great things and some great opportunities, and it's a very unique niche that we're able to do, because you know what, mostly everybody likes and needs to wear clothes, right? And it's also an opportunity to where people can be creative. Veterans can learn some new skills. Also, there's leadership positions in the program as well to be teachers and to be educators for those that would like to learn more about fashion and sustainable fashion and are naturally leaders anyway, and they're looking to get back into something that they can thrive in and something that they can contribute in. So, we look forward to the launch of the program. You can easily go to the website, which is keepingveteransfit.org. That's keepingveteransfit.org, and learn about the program. And you'll be able to share, contribute, or donate if you'd like. But you'd also be able to share this program and see exactly what strides we're taking to do our part and to contribute. I'm an Air Force veteran. My sister is Semper Fi, so they celebrate 245 years Marine Corps, and my dad is retired Navy chief. So we represent a lot of military, and that's very big in our household because we understand how that affects us as individuals and how that affects and has affected our family members in the past, whether it's siblings, children, spouses, loved ones, parents, all of that. So we're very excited about that, and we're proud to be able to contribute, and that's what's most important with us. So I thank you for allowing me to share that.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Normally I wouldn't, this would be Dr. V's thing to kind of recap everything. So Dr. V, I miss you. This is not, y'all know, I'm like, wait a minute. This isn't what I do.
Maybe we kind of got a pre-recorded or something like that.
A pre-recorded Dr. V. Yeah, we'll have to work on a pre-recorded Dr. V. So, we today we were talking about becoming the change that we want to see. Yeah. And whether it be in the church, whether it be in the marketplace, whether it be in your household, you have to become the change that you want to see. We can no longer depend on other people to create change. We have the ability to create, and we have the ability to be creative and to be creators. So we have to tap into that innate ability and become the change that we want to see. We have to create changes we want to see. We started off the conversation with by watching a video of a song that was created by some very familiar faces in the music industry. Some of the biggest that are, if you put them all together, I wouldn't even begin to many millions of hits and records that they have generated. If you put all of them together, I wouldn't be able to do it. But they created something that spoke to becoming, we can have it all. The line in the song is, we can have it all. Nothing that's too big, nothing that's too small. We can be the change that we want to see. We're not average, we're chasing legend status. So all of that is accurate. All of that is a factual. All of that is who we are. And so we have to tap into that, and we have to become the change that we want to see. We can't just sit back and complain and say things aren't working. So if we don't like the narrative that the media is portraying of us, we have a couple of options. We can either create our own media, yes, and dictate the narrative and we write the narrative, or we have to make sure that we are part of the existing media to make sure that we have a voice to change the narrative that's there. If we don't like the disparities that we're seeing in healthcare, which we don't, we either have to create our own healthcare system, or we have to make sure that part of the whole empowering other Black businesses. So we support Black doctors, we support Black cardiologists, we support, and I definitely do. I believe in that. I was raised by a Black doctor. So that is going to be my first go-to, is to go to him and to see, hey, Daddy, who do you know that is this? And so now that we have a president-elect that is a graduate of an HBCU, we can see that HBCUs definitely can create and can educate our future leaders. So we don't necessarily have to go to PWIs to get the best possible education. So we have to make a conscious effort, and we have to decide what is the change that we want to see. And then the second part of that is, what are we willing to do to make that change happen? And we all have a part to play. As Safeda said, we all have a part to play. We all have, there's something that she does that I can't do and I don't want to do. There is something that Rob does that I can't do, and I definitely am not going to try to do. Don't want to do it. I'm not going to try to do it. I don't even want to know how it's done. And then there's things that I do that no one else can do but me. And that's the same with each and every one of you. If you're watching the live version, if you're watching the replay, everybody has a part to play to creating the life that we want to live. And I can't depend on somebody else to create the life that I want to live for me.
Yeah.
That's something that we all have to kind of tap into and understand, that is the first part is, what do we want? What kind of life do we want to live? And then how can we contribute to making that happen? Were there any final words from either of you that you all wanted to chime in on?
I'll just remind everyone, tomorrow is still Veterans Day. It's November the 11th. COVID, the pandemic, has not canceled Veterans Day, so it still happens. And so we honor our veterans that have definitely contributed in so many different ways for our country. So, I salute not only the veterans, but the family members that have been that constant support system is just as key and vital as a veteran, whether you're active duty, reserve, or retired. So we just want to extend our love and support nationally and internationally. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here.
I would just say that, for each of us and everybody who's, watching, to just keep doing the work. That's the only way that we're going to be able to create that change, is to constantly get out there and do the work that's necessary. And if we're all building together, then each of those building blocks are going to create something bigger than what we can even imagine. So that's what I just encourage everybody to do.
Yeah.
Good deal. Well, I thank each and every one of you. Today was today is actually technically our October Council of Kings and Queens, because it was originally scheduled for the Tuesday before the election, and it was still early voting. And yeah, we were trying to make sure everybody made sure they went and voted. There was no excuse to not go vote. You weren't going to be on the show. So our next Council of Kings and Queens is actually November 24th. And so we'll have I'll put up what the topic is and then the activity. So if you want to purchase the kit for the activity, it's of course at realitycheckez.com. And that's short for Reality Check Empowerment Zone. And then we have, depending on what COVID is doing, we have a Reality Check Empowerment Zone in December, one in January, one in February, and our Reality Check Empowerment Zone powering of the Council of Kings and Queens live will be in March. So I'm very excited about that. That'll be a one-day retreat experience. Safeda, we're gonna have to figure out how to get you down here, because you gotta come.
Yes, I have to.
So COVID, barring any craziness with COVID, that is scheduled to be in the end of March. So you'll see information about that soon, because you'll be able to buy tickets early for the Council of Kings and Queens experience live. And so thank you everybody for participating. Thank you, Robert Malloy. Safeda, I'm always going to say, I was like, artist, no, there's a name. There's another
Artist
name.
Mills.
Artist Mills. Okay. I was like, wait. So thank you both for joining me today. Dr. V, get better.
Yes,
Feel better.
absolutely.
We need you next week.
Yes,
or
definitely prayers sent her way.
Yes, because this isn't my gifting. This is all you. So we're going to go out. I know we had some people that came on late, so we're going to I'm going to ask you all to hang out for a little while. We are going to do let the people that joined us see the video again before we end everything. All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you all to hang out for just a second while this plays again.
All right.
These are tough times we live in, but still we can't just give in. We must stand tall and live strong. It's up to the youth to live on.
And carry this torch we pass down. You see, I know it's not the last round. In the next generation, my faith is unwavering.
My confidence in you is unshakable, because I know that you're willing and far beyond capable of doing all that must be done. But to do it all, we must be as one.
Life can be better than most of us dream.
Yeah.
So once you take the reins, believe in your greatness which lies within.
And for the better, this world will change.
I see that you want it. I see that you're working for it. So don't take no days off. It's gonna pay off. I see that you love it. I want you to know that before you can see it, you gotta believe it. You're the generation of tomorrow. The pursuit starts today, and all time is borrowed. Mm-hmm. So you have learned the ways. You are not, oh I repeat, you are not put on the search to lose. And you are hot, yeah I repeat it, that you are hot. So do what you do, and we gon' do it big. We gon' make a scene. We gon' take the doubters, make them all believe. We gon' be the change that we wanna see. We're not taking average, chasing legend status. We can have the world, we can have it all. Nothing is too big, nothing is too small. We can be the change that we wanna see. We're not taking average, chasing legend status. Oh no no, I see that it's in your heart. I see that it's in your heart. I feel it, I feel your desire.
It only takes one spark. It only takes one spark to set it on fire.
You're the generation of tomorrow, but the work starts today.
And all time is borrowed, so there's no time to wait.
And you and I, yeah I repeat, you and I. Put on this earth to lose. And you are hot. Yeah, I repeat it. You are hot. So do what you do. Yeah. And we gon' do it big.
stop us now. No.